Architect 2021. With great power comes great responsibility. The professional duty of care. Session 3. As an elite professional who orchestrates multiple professional disciplines, the architect assumes the legal responsibility of realizing aspirations of a primary client while ensuring the safety, health and well-being of many direct and indirect users who engage the architectural manifestation physically or visually. Defining the legal term duty of care in a much broader humane meaning, the architect displays equal compassion to all members of society, irrespective of caste, creed, gender, or age. Charged with the socio-cultural responsibility of preserving tangible and intangible elements of heritage related to the built fabric, the architect conserves cultural identities. Responding to a communal responsibility of engaging in social engineering, the architect creates vibrant neighborhoods where physical environments ensure rich human interaction while ensuring social participation in such changes of urbanity.
The first speaker for this theme is architect Thilan Kottigoda. He is the founding partner of KWA Architects, and he has worked in the UK and in Middle East before forming KWA. He has won many academic awards, including the Professor K.R.S. Peeris Award for the Best Designer in MSc Architecture and the SLIA Award for the Best Results in the Part 3 examination, and the SLIA Award for Best Results in MSc Architecture and BSc Built Environment degrees from the University of Moratuwa. Thilan also acts as a visiting tutor of design for the University of Moratuwa and the City School of Architecture. Today, he will speak on the very intriguing topic of making proper custard for your jelly, somehow related to high-rise buildings and public safety. I'm sure the topic has kindled your curiosity, and now to lay your curiosity to rest, I welcome architect Thilan Kottigoda.
Please welcome architect Thilan Kottigoda.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually almost good evening. So today I've got a little presentation and a little bit of information to share with you on this intriguing topic. I mean, it's actually about proficiency in high-rise building design and public safety, but I call it making proper custard for your jelly. So let's find out whether this is a cooking program or a speech on architecture. So safety in high-rise buildings, it comes in several forms. I mean, as we know, safety of the public as users inside the building and outside the development within its property premises. That's essentially the main component of public safety as an architect or an engineer of a project would have to be responsible for. But at the same time, we have also the safety of the public as those who experience the development as part of a city. I mean, going into the safety of public as users, this comes in many forms. It comes as structural safety of a building, fire safety, passive and active forms, vertical transportation and safety from falls, safety of MEP systems, safety during construction, and these are essentially very well documented, coded, regulated, legalized. And architects, engineers, all the construction professionals are legally bound to follow these codes and regulations. At the same time, we also have the safety of the public as those who experience a development, a building or a collection of buildings, a project as part of a city. We talk about responsibility of the larger built environment, responsibility to the larger built environment, effects of the microclimate, things like urban heat island, wind, sunlight patterns, ventilation, how those things get affected by the developments, high-rise buildings especially, then economic well-being of the citizenry, and how high-rise buildings or dense built architecture can affect these things within a city development. We also talk about social well-being of a city or of its city dwellers, and the cultural shift that large mega developments would bring to a city or a country. We also talk about environmental behavior, psychology of the citizenry, about placemaking, about city being a space for the public as well as for the buildings or the owners or the occupants of those buildings. So safety of the public within the city becomes essentially a part of the responsibility of the architect who designs this city, mainly in the form of high-rise buildings and high-dense developments. So high-rise buildings often are very prominent, celebrated static citizens of a city. Its owners, designers, constructors, governments, regulators, sometimes even the city itself celebrates these cities, these high-rise buildings as very important static citizens within the city. So from banknotes to stamps to our social media to branding of a city to everything, the high-rise buildings always stand out. With the celebrity status that we see high-rise building taking on within a city space, there is also a larger than life personality for them. Just like we expect from any celebrity in sports or in drama or in theater, in movies, similarly a city's larger than life static citizens, the high-rise buildings, also have this huge personality, and they become essentially imposing urban citizens. So this personality stems from the architect that designs it. Mainly the architect, but also urban designers, the engineers also becomes part of forming this personality of this high-rise building, and that design sets the tone for that location or the neighborhood or the locality that the development is coming in, and sometimes it could even set the tone or the impression of the city itself. So essentially, because of these key components, the design of a high-rise building could affect not just the safety or the well-being of the people who actually use it, but it also essentially relates to the psychological well-being or the overall health of a city as a whole. So this larger than life, intangible, qualitative form of public safety is not that very well documented. We know there are codes for fire regulations or codes for density of a building or code for the structural safety of a building, but not necessarily about how a building relates itself or how a building communicates its presence to the larger city. In certain instances, urban design regulations or development control guidelines could address this to an extent, but by and large, especially in Sri Lanka, this responsibility lies with the architect, and the public trusts the architect to make sure these buildings or his creations design features will ensure the safety and the well-being of the public. So this is where making the right custard for your jelly comes in. As architects, we are very good at making jelly. I mean, jelly is what we always make, but jelly can be really tasty, but it's the custard that pours around it, the custard that is all around it, that will essentially make it delicious. So a city can't just be a collection of buildings, as we all know. The spaces around the buildings and how the buildings relate to the public spaces, all that becomes absolutely important, just like the custard is important to enjoying a good bowl of jelly. So one of my personal experiences about how In practice, some of these ideas have been put into place. Colombo City Centre, as we all know, which opened 2 years ago, it's still a project ongoing, but the public spaces are all open and functioning. Now, right from the outset of the design in 2013, us together with our international collaborators felt that the way this 48-story high-rise building connects to the public space is something that we need to consider in the design. Essentially, this meant going beyond our developmental boundaries to see how we can merge the city's public space into the so-called private spaces of the building. How we can ensure that the city responds positively to this 48-story, almost 1.2 million square foot development while recognizing its private boundaries. So we looked at the street space down Muttaya Road as well as James Pieris Mawatha, which are the two main roads that the development is facing, and tried to understand what the existing scenario is and how this relationship from the building to the public space can be enhanced. So a few pictures of the site just as the land was acquired. Essentially, there was no public promenade as such, there were no public walkways. It's basically roadside parking, taken over for roadside parking. Absolutely no pavement present. People are walking down the tarmac to get from one place to the other. And there's a lot of stray garbage and hazard vehicle parking happening down there. So the CCC design attempted to ensure that the public entrances into the building were merged into the public space outside. So it was seen as another small micro public garden kind of a walkway, so that the pedestrian walkway can meander through bits of garden spaces, bits of street furniture, water features, and essentially almost subliminally welcome you into the public spaces. So together with the international landscape designers, entire streetscape was designed. Then it was presented to Urban Development Authority as well as Colombo Municipal Council, who legally owns the pavement spaces or the public spaces along the roads in Colombo, and the presentation was done to explain how this 48-story high-rise building was trying to merge into the public space. I have to say all government agencies looked very positively at this, and they welcomed this approach from a private developer, and the expense of designing all these public spaces as well as the expense of constructing them were borne by the developer. So there was essentially no cost to the taxpayers in enhancing this urban space. The entire landscape, including the types of trees, plants, shrubs, bushes, which are going to be planted, were all identified and presented. Variety of colors, textures, finishes, all those were identified earlier on as well. So from that, a detailed design was done to show how the landscapes could merge into the public walkway. And few water features were added, tall trees, shrubs and bushes, flowering plants were added. And essentially, towards the completion of the shopping mall, where the Colombo City Centre opened to the public, the streetscape also came alive. So, built-in furniture for the use of the public, wide, comfortable walkways, variety of finishes and textures to keep the interest in the street space continued. Water features along the edges, all these help to merge the private space into the public space in a seamless manner, welcoming the people in Colombo into the building. So subsequently, around high-rise developments in other parts of Colombo as well, we see this trend continuing. sometimes not always as funded by the developers, but also government agencies are also taking the initiative in creating these very exciting and interesting public spaces along the waterfronts, along little urban pockets where public space and the private space definition is now slowly dissolving. So the idea is that as we do this, as the number of high-rise buildings within Colombo increases, this elimination of the definition of private space to public space will enhance the overall health of the city in terms of the spatial psychology that the urban dweller experiences. So, what's next? So, as we all know, Colombo Port City is a 20-year program from going up to until 2040, entirely reclaimed 665 acres of land. So, it has redefined the boundaries of Sri Lanka, and essentially as far as private development goes, the largest project in Colombo at the moment. Now, what's interesting about Port City is that it's already reclaimed. The land has already been reclaimed. There are something like 74 plots of land which are to be given to private developers for developments. But what's also interesting is that it has been identified to go into different districts within this 665 acre city development. And as you can see, the land reclamation work is now complete, as the developer has also confirmed to the public. So the marina spaces, then as seen in the visuals that they have issued, there are large areas of public parklands, public promenades, pedestrian bridges, public art and sculptures, connections through proposed public transport systems. And of course, then being reclaimed oceanfront land, there is a very large public beach. So what's so special about Port City? I mean, as a political entity, it's always controversial, but I'm touching on the architectural and design features of that. So what's special about Port City is that a few minutes ago I said that the regulations that governs the overall public health or the public well-being of a city in relation to high-rise developments is not that very strictly controlled, and that to a very larger extent the responsibility is within the with the architects. But that's about to change over here. So Port City, although it's part of City of Colombo, it has a very detailed development control guideline. It has a very specific focus on green areas in terms of landscaping spaces within private land plots, detailed control over vehicular entrances and exits, highly detailed information on public promenades, how the buildings or the high rises that will be coming up can relate to the public space outside. In certain instances, even the height of the public promenades that the private developer has to maintain are all very explicitly explained and controlled. So with this, Port City has the potential to become a very livable urban space. But like we said, Colombo proper city regulation still not detailed to that level. Obviously, Colombo being 32 square kilometers of land, it's much larger than the Port City, and there is so many different social and economic intricacies within the city of Colombo. It might not be able to control a development to that level. So essentially, even for the next 20 years, developing alongside Port City, Colombo proper will look towards its architects to make sure that the city itself stays as a safe public space for the people of the city. So with Colombo's number of high-rise buildings increasing every year, in a situation where the development control has limited focus on the health and safety of the city and its dwellers, it's up to the architects to always keep in mind that their extended clientele is essentially the people of the city. So health and safety, or the safety aspects of a high-rise building is going beyond the architect's immediate responsibility to his client or her client and the immediate users overall into the city space. And I hope going forward, all of us architects will keep this in mind. Thank you very much.